Hey and welcome back everyone to a brand new video on the Identity Coach Tim's YouTube channel. Have you ever wondered why, even though you've read all the books, even though you've soaked in all of the personal development podcasts, episodes, whatever you're doing and whatever you have been doing to work on your identity, on your persona over the last decades or years, even though you know it all, when pressure is being applied to a certain situation, that entire calmness, that entire zen and peace and knowledge just gets thrown out of the window, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where you're acting out of survival and protection mode rather than safe and confidence. How is this possible? Well, in this identity architecture series, we have so far, because this is video 3, we have so far been diving into the principle of why you keep attracting the same partners and you keep attracting the same patterns as you have in the past. In the last video, we talked about the idea of the self-concept, what the self-concept is, that it is your gardening or your guiding body that is basically the foundational layer of your identity. We have discovered as well so far that your brain is like a hardware. It's a computer that needs to be updated over and over and over again. And the system that is running that script knows exactly 2 answers or 2 questions that it asks itself. Question number 1 is this behavior and action and thought predictable? And is it repeatable? Your brain, and that's what we have established so far, your brain does not care if something is good or bringing you further in your relationship or in your business or in your career or in life itself. The only thing it cares about is the primal instinct of, can I repeat it? Is it predictable? So is it safe for my survival? That is so far the base layer of identity work that we've dived into. Today, in video number 3, we will dive and dissect the idea of the identity safety loop. The identity safety loop is pretty much the idea behind is that, we've all done the work. So if you're on this channel right now, if you followed my Journey Beyond podcast on Spotify or any platform, or if you follow my content on Instagram, right, you're already engaging yourself into identity work content. You're probably a student of life. You're probably interested in personal development and understanding and defining more of who am I, answering this question. The thing is, you can know everything out there. You can read all the books, do all of the Chris Williamson or Stephen Bartlett's podcasts out there. You can dissect and do all of the live courses and workshops on YouTube here right now. We assume that just because we've, received all of this personal development in content, that change happens just magically or automatically, which is obviously not the case. Because as long as you don't teach your system or your brain or your nervous system, to better say, brain and nervous system, if you don't teach those 2 governing bodies that the situation that you're in and the reaction and behavior that you bring to the table is safe, you will always fall back into the same old loops. And this is what I call the safety loop, your identity safety loop. So let's break it down. If personal development would really be there to, you understand it, you soak it in, you maybe even write it down, repeat it a couple of times. If automatically after you soak in personal development content, change happens automatically, then trust me, psychotherapists or psychologists would have the best paid jobs in the entire world, because a single session could probably solve all of your problems. Logically, that's not the case. For anyone who went to therapy, for anyone who went to a psychologist or to a coach, coaching and psychological therapy is something that takes longer periods of time, because it's not actually about the problem itself. It's about the identity that has instilled itself within you that keeps that is trying to reconfirm the underlying belief system, the underlying trigger patterns within your life, right? So that is the idea behind. Like most people out there, you know what your insecurities are. You know what your attachment style patterns are. You maybe even know some of the identity work concept that I'm bringing out here, right? But at the same time, when life happens and when you're being pushed into situations where, you're coming out of your Zen garden and you meditate and you do breath work and you have your morning routine, your coffee, ice bath, gym, whatever, you get into the streets and you get pushed into a situation where there's a little bit of pressure applied to life. All of a sudden, your entire morning routine gets crumbled into pieces, an internal trigger is being activated, and a behavior pattern comes to light that is so far off from what you woke up with in the morning. Okay, so that is the idea here behind. We all have these internal trigger systems, these internal patterns that rule us and that are guarding us. So in that sense, your system doesn't simply ask, what did I learn from this podcast? What did I learn from this YouTube video? What did I learn from this workshop that I went to? But rather, it asks a much simpler question. And this is already a huge takeaway for today's episode. It asks itself, what response keeps me safe right now? And the response is usually the one your nervous system learned years ago. So this is the first big question. Your nervous system has a definition of normal. Let's dive into this. Actually, before, if you're new to this channel, if the last 5 minutes already blew your mind away a little bit, make sure to subscribe to the Identity Coach YouTube channel here on YouTube. In the link on this channel, you find in the link in the description of the video, you find all useful resources and tools and links, because I upload weekly videos here on YouTube. I have a weekly podcast that every single Monday morning I upload an episode at 7 a.m. to kickstart your week. It's called the Journey Beyond Podcast. And I'm putting out a lot of resources, free resources out there for you to improve your life and actually start working on yourself in an effective manner, not just through woo-woo motivation and inspiration quotes by Alan Watts, but actually through real life systematic change. Okay, so if you're new to this, make sure to subscribe, turn on the notifications, and check out the rest of the videos on my YouTube channel, because I'm slowly building up this identity architecture as you can see it. So let's get into the next point. So we have established in the previous videos already that your brain's main function is survival. It does not care whether something is good for you or whether it's making you happy. It only cares, this primal instinct inside of you cares whether it can survive in the environment that you're in. This, if you look prehistorically to the first man, to every animal, every living creature here, its main purpose is survival. We as human beings, we can feel very privileged because we have ascended this stage of primordial behavior. We are intellectual beings, right? But nonetheless, this primal instinct within us keeps us for a simple pattern of survival and replication. That is the base layer of this entire anatomy, this entire system that is running and that is actually making the world still exist in the future. Survival, protection, and replication, right? So if your nervous system from a very early age on had already this primal instinct of, okay, is this pattern or this action repeatable? And is it predictable? You received certain safetiness. If now you in your early childhood, you've experienced trauma, you've experienced hardship or bullying or maybe some physical abuse, sexual abuse, really harm that was done to you on an emotional level, this concept of your reality, this concept of the world is not being safe, I'm not being good enough, I have to perform in order to be seen and to be loved, this concept ingrains itself as a safety mechanism, a safety preference mechanism within your brain. Here the idea is this internal system that you experiencing has been guided by how conflict, for example, was handled in your family, or whether emotions were welcomed, or they were kind of seen as no, don't feel, just do, just think. Don't feel emotion, don't be vulnerable, don't be weak, right? Or for example, whether closeness felt safe or unsafe. All of these factors, right, create certain experiences that your nervous system interprets as things such as closeness leads to rejection. If I don't perform, I am not valued. Or if I don't speak up, conflict happens. Or maybe even if I speak up, then I'll get rejected. So I'd rather be quiet, silent, and stay in my pace. These patterns happened already very early on in your childhood, while you were being raised, while you were being taught everything about the world. This is not necessarily your parents' fault, but it is technically your parents' fault. theoretically, I'm saying because even your parents were going through parenthood for the very first time. So can you really blame them? If they were trying to make it good, but still made mistakes along the way, that's just human default. You know, we're all experiencing this for the very first time, and errors are normal. So I've had this conversation with a colleague quite recently where he asked me, okay, Tim, but how is this actually possible? I mean, why are certain people born into an environment where, you know, they're born with rich parents, everything was being given to them like on a golden spoon or on a golden plate? Those people don't have problems. And I was like, I question that. I have never met in my entire life a single person, and if you find one, let me know. Prove it to me. Really prove it to me. I don't know, I'll pay you a month worth of food, of your favorite food. I don't care. Or I'll give you 10, 20 euros. I don't give a shit. I don't care. The idea here behind is I've never met a single person without traumas, without a baggage to carry, because we're all going through this for the very first time. And most of the processes that parents are going through, because they're just caring about, okay, the kid needs to survive, right? At the same time, we need to figure out our own life, work, relationship, maybe pleasure, maybe intimacy. All of these things next to raising a child come up, and it's nearly impossible to do everything right. Well, sorry, it is impossible to do everything right. Always something will fall off at the end. And this is the idea that your nervous system will catch up. So we all have baggages to carry. So you going through this video right now and asking yourself, well, that is actually great. So I'm not the only one in this thing. Nobody is. You will never be the only one when it comes to personal development, because we're all figuring it out for the very first time. Our human existence, the purpose of our universe is to evolve and to expand into new unknown fields, realms, and throughout, over, beneath, or surrounding time and space. So if the universe's purpose is to expand and discover whatever is like in the unknown, why do we assume that we are so special? That is not our problem, right? So now I've got a little bit off track. Let's get back to the safety loop. So the safety loop, this is usually what happens, right? You, for example, you start today with good intentions, right? You want to communicate clearly, you want to set clear boundaries, you want to, I don't know, you have a certain intention for the day. This intention might be, you know, I want to start off strong. I want to tell my colleagues finally what I feel. I want to set boundaries in my relationship because I feel that my partner is overstepping. I want to communicate clearly. I want to stop chasing validation. Or, for example, I want to make a confident decision for my day because, you know, I've been lacking that and I need it now. But then something triggers your system. This trigger then activates something like, well, this trigger can look like someone is maybe not replying to your messages, or your girlfriend is having a bad day, or partner having a bad day, so she's being a little bit distant to you, even though you wanted to have a certain confrontation or communication with her. Or maybe, well, let's say distance. Or a client at work questions your competence, right? Something out of the blue happened which you didn't expect. Now, all of a sudden, competence. Now, all of a sudden, this trigger will actually take you systematically and kind of subconsciously from a thinking mode of this is how I wanted to create my day over into protection mode. Because now your entire plan has been kicked over and you got to kind of figure out again, okay, what do I do? What happens now? And the first subconscious reaction that your nervous system has, it's very simple. The safety loop gets activated through that. Because the safety loop then, it looks like this. You have, let's now take the trigger. A certain external trigger happens, right? This trigger triggers a certain threat response. This threat response, which you are perceiving, is an alarm to your nervous system that will then automatically activate a protection behavior. This protection behavior has a single purpose: your survival, your innate brain's survival. So what happens then after this protection behavior? So for example, I'm going to give you some examples in a little bit, but let's take for example that you want to communicate clearly, right? But your girlfriend is being distant to you. This distance you kind of experience as a certain rejection. This rejection is then basically your core belief, your self-concept is already the basis of, okay, I don't feel good enough, I don't feel seen, I feel like I don't belong, right? I don't communicate my needs properly. And this trigger then, this threat response, then activates a certain behavior where you then, instead of, being understanding and being rational and maybe being emotionally available to that partner and asking, hey, what's up? You kind of right away perceive it as, all right, she's being distant to me. She doesn't want me. She doesn't want to hear my thoughts anyways, right? So you distance yourself, or you maybe get a little bit picky, or you react in a rather inconvenient or toxic manner. So then this protection behavior, pushing her away because she gave you a perceived threat, then activates certain temporary relief. Temporary relief. This temporary relief, right? Now you pushed her away because she was being distant to you, because maybe she was having a bad day, but you can't see that obviously, because in your system you're just like, all right, I'm not good enough, I wanted to communicate now my needs, now she's pushing me away. Obviously that means that she thinks as well that I'm not good enough. So what I do, I push her away, I retreat, I retract, I don't talk, I don't communicate, I close down. This closing down helps me then to not feel the rejection that she would give me if I would now go ask her what's up. But this retraction, distance, this going inside and not talking about what's going on will actually reinforce the old identity. And this is how the safety loop happens. You have a trigger that happens, that brings you out of your day-to-day concept, maybe a Range Rover driver or something that you didn't expect after you've really had this Zen moment, this Zen perfect start. Something triggers you that attacks your underlying old identity, your self-concept. That threat is being responded with by a protection behavior that you bring up, because you don't want to be hurt again, you don't want to see this hurt again, this loop, this self-concept that we have of ourselves, of not being good enough, of not feeling seen, of not being worthy, of needing to overperform, of needing to, attach too much to people in order to receive their love and attention. That's a scream and that's a cry of an inner, small, hurt child that no matter what age you were, where you've experienced this negative situation, was pushed away, left alone, and internalized the belief and the thought that it was having at this point. And maybe these situations happened over and over and over again. So throughout these repetitions, that belief and that thought and that system, that loop, keeps reenacting the same pattern over and over and over again. And whatever is repeated by your brain is being accepted and confirmed as your baseline mechanism, your baseline system, your identity. See, when I talk about mechanics, systems, it's just basically making a theoretical concept that you can't really touch. You can't touch your identity and break it down into something practical that you can actually work with. So that is the idea behind the safety loop. So your nervous system then interprets, like I said here, this reaction like a potential rejection. So it kind of closes down to all of the potential possibilities, and your entire day will unfold this way. Maybe you get yourself out of it again because you say, okay, let me meditate, let me do some breath work, let me come back into the moment. You feel fine again. Maybe the next try will work out, but down the line, there will be some unknown pressures and unforeseen events that will happen, because that's just part of life. They happen constantly, that will bring you back into that safety loop for reconfirming your old identity. So if your nervous system will always pull towards or always feel attracted by what it knows, what is predictable, what has been repeated, and what has an emotional charge. I explained as well in the last video, which is a very interesting point for you to keep in mind. Negative emotions, negative, strong emotional experiences are being saved or internalized by your brain 100 times stronger and more efficiently than positive ones. Why? Simple answer. Your brain's main function is survival. Negative experiences have way more impact because they impact your survival. They impact your well-being and your capability of running away from a saber-toothed tiger, or being able to hunt for the next foods, right? If you're having a good day, that is like 1% instead of 100% for the negative charge. Because if you're having a good day, if you've hunted down a bird, cool, good job. But how long will that bird feed you? Feeling bad, in comparison there, will actually disable you or hold you back from being able to keep your mechanism in survival mode. So negative emotions are being effectively imprinted into your system 100 times stronger. So whatever negative experience you've had in the past is evidence and proof that your system can feel safe in a certain environment and around certain people. So this belief then reconfirms your identity loop that you have been holding on or holding up your entire life. A little parenthesis. In my coaching practice, because I offer one-on-one coachings where I dive deep into these identity architecture frameworks, I love working with parts, because your identity is being split, and I will do an entire video or video course series about parts work. Because in that moment where your nervous system was for the first time triggered by a negative, very strong and high impact negative emotion, your identity split. Why? Because it needed to retract, because if it can't run away physically, it runs away, metaphorically speaking, inside of you, because it wants to hide from the negative emotions and from the negative experience itself. If it's something where you maybe have to run, it's actually a physical event which is happening, which sometimes is the case, but most of the time traumatic experiences happen mentally and emotionally. There's emotional abuse present, and if you can't run away from physically from emotional abuse, then you run away inside of you, and this running away from you splits your personality. Keep it as a bowl of light, like a bowl, a round ball which is filled with light. Running away from yourself will split this ball into two. The part that is in the light, that is able to carry on because it needs to function within that situation, will stay tainted. But this part that's split off tries to run away as far as possible into the shadow. Carl Jung called this the creation of the shadow. It's the internalization and the split of the persona into a part of you, the unconscious, the subconscious, where it is not consciously seen, felt, and experienced. And this is the entire idea of the shadow self. It's the part of you that has been hurt in the past. And this hurt carries a strong emotional charge that most people don't want to experience, because we want to feel happy all the time. We want to be in a good state all the time. Feel good now, always. But if your nervous system knows that there is a part somewhere in the back, hiding and trying to stay in the shadows, because bringing it up would mean releasing that emotional charge and actually being able to transmute that emotion. Emotion stands for energy in motion. Then it would actually be able to solve that part, but we don't want to, because emotions are always stronger than thoughts. I can have the best thoughts about the best life in my, the best version of my life right now, but applying actually emotions, experiences, evidence to it is way harder than we expect. So that's just a quick parenthesis, because parts work is understanding the different parts of you that got created within certain moments in your life where your identity had to adapt to a new environment and it was maybe split. And this, Carl Jung as well, but Tony Robbins, the NLP coach, teaches this as well, is what we call the archetypes. Certain parts of you that have certain characteristics, either to protect you, either to perform, either to criticize, either to basically make things or healing things, or being able to properly love others. Like, there are different parts that take different characteristics on, because your brain attaches that new experience to this specific characteristic or this persona inside of you, because it just matches that emotional evidence that it has experienced. It just matches it and brings it to it. So this persona, this part of you, keeps on growing. Parts work is uncovering them, bringing them to a table, making them communicate in one language, and you as the meta self, the leader of this all, the conscious you experiencing life, gets to take control again of the team and is the leader of the team, directing your entire team to work together instead of what they're probably doing right now, working against each other. So that's just, a little parenthesis in between. I will do an entire series on this, and maybe even a course that you can do in your free time. So now let's get to the next point. Why healthy change feels so unreal to you, and why you most of the time self-sabotaging yourself away from it. We said familiarity to your nervous system creates a repeatable loop. Unfamiliarity is what the nervous system rejects, pushes away. Because let's look at this. If your entire being, let's take an example with a relationship, right? Your entire life has been chaotic. Well, my writing is not the greatest. Your entire life is chaotic. So everything for you is very chaotic. Family dynamics, a very, very chaotic relationship, or partners that you've attracted that cheated on you, that went haywire, that weren't honest with you, that were kind of like showing up toxic traumatic patterns. And maybe through already these 2 points, then you built a very unhealthy friendship circle, family, relationship, let's say career, right? Your career choices were basically being determined and dominated by that chaotic lifestyle that you anyways had in your life, right? So everything that you choose in your life is chaotic by default. Because this, at a certain moment, if you've experienced this early on, it got reconfirmed, maybe you had this as well in your growing up years, chaotic becomes your baseline. It's what you know, what you can go through, and what is repeatable because you've been through the entire system. Now let's take that all of a sudden you meet a safe, organized, loving partner. That loving partner gives you all of the affection, is understanding, is absolutely everything else than chaotic. He or she is harmonic, right? It gives you really calmness into your chaotic lifestyle. Even though this is exactly what you desire, what you always wanted in life, you will feel towards this person a certain feeling of, something is too good to be true here. Something is too good to be true here. No. I mean, it can't be. I've always attracted just chaotic into my life. I've always just had toxic relationships. I think he or she is just playing me. I think he or she is just playing a game with me, and at the end it will turn out anyways to be a chaotic and toxic relationship, because I know I don't deserve any other thing. I don't know anything else. So this feeling of is actually the unfamiliarity of your nervous system towards the situation and that new experience. Because as you haven't experienced this new pattern of safetyness, organizedness, you have no emotional evidence that can prove that this is actually an option for your nervous system to replicate. So what you will do, self-sabotage comes in. And by the way, you can translate this example not only to relationship, but as well to your relationship of making money, to your career, to your friendship and family dynamics, to your personal relationship with yourself, and to overcome traumas. If you are used to run one system and all of a sudden a new opportunity approaches, something healthy or something better, you will self-sabotage and do everything in your power unconsciously to keep this away, because this feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar seems unsafe to your brain. I know this is really effed up and seems unfair, but this is how your brain functions. So unless you are able to bring the unconscious into your consciousness, it will run and enslave you for the rest of your life. Meaning, that was a quote by Carl Jung, meaning, unless you don't bring your patterns to light, understand them, and consciously are able to tackle them, your subconscious systems will run every part of your life. And you think it's fate. You think it's destiny. You think it's just who I am. But this is basically the safety loop and the identity dynamics that you are dealing with. So you will do everything in your power. You will maybe try to gaslight your partner, or you will have trick questions. I always have like anxiety when he or she is out of the house, so you constantly control and you overtext and you just, involve yourself too much. Maybe you sabotage something in order to tickle the real him or her outside of this bubble, because you can't believe that's what you deserve. And everything that does is to push, distance that new, better, healthier version away from you, so you can stick with what you already know, the chaotic version of you. So that is the idea of the safety loop, right? There is a trigger, there is a pattern, a threat, a behavior. The behavior gives a temporary relief, because now I feel safe again in my chaotic environment, and it reconfirms your old loop. So let's get to the next point, because this one is very, very interesting, and it has a lot of psychological background behind it. It's called the state-independent identity. And actually, if you like what you've seen so far and you like my kind of scribbling on that whiteboard, give this video a like, or comment down below what some of the patterns are that you are currently dealing with in your life, and I will get back to them and I will answer them individually in a small and effective manner, right? So we can uncover a little bit more of what you're going through. So the next point is what psychologists and psychotherapists call state-dependent identity. So state-dependent identity is something that happened momentarily. Let's get back to that situation. You wake up in the morning, you have a really good morning routine. You get your coffee, you go take your ice bath, you do a little workout, you meditate, you read, you do your affirmations, you're really zen with nature, you start levitating a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm doing that myself. I'm just like to make fun of it a little bit. You're super zen. The moment you get out of the house, you drop your phone. Something happens. And you maybe, through a partner, through another person, your entire day gets thrown over, gets ruined. And all of a sudden, your entire system crunches together. You start getting avoidant, anxious, defensive, controlling. How is that possible? Psychologists call that a state-dependent identity. An identity pattern, a system, that is happening based upon a certain state that your nervous system deems as familiar or not. So here the idea is you have basically a different pattern from one moment to the other. You're the same person, you're just in a different emotional state. And the more intense the emotion, the harder it is to access your calm and reflective self. So in that moment, your behavior is no longer guided by insight, it's guided by protection. I'm repeating a lot of words here over and over and over again, so they ingrain into the back of your mind, because protection, nervous system, algorithm, system, mechanics, architecture, patterning, repatterning, belief systems, they're all terms that you will hear a lot in my videos, in my podcast, and in the future of this channel, because we want to get down to the nitty-gritties of it, right? So again, if you like this channel, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out my podcast, check out the links in the description. Let's get it. So there are 3 common triggers, okay? When a situation happens, you can overall summon it together into 3 main principal triggers that can happen to you. These principal triggers have, of course, different deviants, but in core, there are 3. 3 main triggers. Zack. Trigger number 1. Let me actually write that in red. Trigger number 1. Rejection. Rejection is the fear of losing connection, right? This is something often, this behavior often, or this trigger often leads to things such as people pleasing, chasing, or over-explaining yourself, because we don't want to get rejected, we want to get accepted, we want to have love and affection, we want to feel close and connected with another soul, with another body, with your parents, with your partner. Rejection is what we fear because we don't want to be left alone. We need other people to regulate, to, community-wise hold together to survive. So rejection is a core trigger that activates certain characteristics of you that you may be not aware of, or you are running since years and years and years and years, and they come up whenever a certain trigger of rejection gets to the day. Trigger number 2. Shame. Ooh, we don't like shame. We don't like shame because the fear of being exposed of being not enough, is a core trigger. If your dad, for example, or your mom, when you were a child, always told you when you were feeling scared, or you wanted to express emotions, or you were sad, or you were angry, and they said, no, don't be vulnerable, suck it up. Suck it up. Be a man, be a woman, don't show emotions, right? Whenever you're in your adult years and you get into a situation where someone could expose your feeling of inadequacy, your feeling of not being enough, this is actually where you reject. You feel like you're triggered. You feel like an old core wound is being revived again, and you act into a certain direction. This trigger can lead into perfectionism, overworking, or withdrawing, distancing yourself from people, right? So shame, very powerful. And now the third, the loss of control. As top of the food chain, as human beings, we want to be in control all the time. Not being in control means that you potentially would face threats that could risk your survival. So what this loss of fear of control, or what this lack of or fear of loss of control would mean, is that you feel like you're being overwhelmed or you're powerless. And we don't want to be powerless, we want to have control of everything around us. So this often creates controlling behaviors. Like we want to attach to something right away, or we want to control a person, their thoughts, their actions, because we can't give off control. And this can result into emotional shutdown as well, right? A lot of people you probably know people that get triggered a lot with one of those 3, right? Rejection, shame, or loss of control. They're the main core ones. So when one of these threats appear, your system falls back on the identity it knows how to run. So in last episode, we talked already a little bit about the idea of how identity can actually change, how change is actually possible. Because you cannot change identity by affirmations alone. Your system needs evidence. Most importantly, emotional evidence. So the three key parts of changing your identity are the following. You need events that are specific. So a specific relationship that happens, a specific mindset shift that you experience that, gives you physical evidence that you can touch, that you can experience, that prove that new pattern, that new identity, that new characteristic that you would like to take on. For example, being overweight, I'm never good enough. I always will be too big, too overweight. Going to the gym and actually having results, sweating, feeling good after a session. That's a physical result. That's something that you feel within your body. That second step is it needs to be repeated. So if you take, for example, the example of the overweight person in the gym, you go to the gym already, that's an experience of confirming a new pattern that you would like to install is, I want to feel healthy in my body, I want to get into better shape. You showing up then 4 to 5 times per week to the gym or doing exercise every single day is repeating that new idea, that new pattern in your mind. The third part is the most important one. You need emotional evidence to confirm that new pattern. Like I said, positive emotional impulses take way longer than negative ones. That's why they need to be repeated over and over and over again. So going to the gym and coming back with a feeling of, this feels amazing, I have way more power, I can sleep better, whatever. This emotional evidence ingrains that new loop, that new pattern into your mind, into your nervous system, and will actually override the old existing one. So repeating something, having physical evidence of its changement, and then backing it up with emotional evidence, with an emotional charge that has a positive, high impact, will help you to change any pattern you desire. Like I said, as long as you don't bring the unconscious into the consciousness, it will rule and guideline your life forever. So how do we actually interrupt the safety loop? Because I want to we've talked a lot about safety loop, nervous system, identity. Let's finish this video off strong with something that you can do. You've learned as well right now in the last part how you can change your patterns. But what is more important for me is you have the idea now of how to do it. But how can you actually interrupt the safety loop and instill a new pattern? Here, the idea is very simple. The goal isn't to force yourself into a completely different person overnight. The goal is to slowly detach or teach your nervous system that the new response is safe. Think of it in these 5 steps. And that's the last part of the video where we dive into practicalities of how you can actually change. So, let's finish this off strong. Let's use again a different color that we haven't used. Let's take green, for example. So, first step in the 5-step protocol is, number 1, notice the trigger. Bring the unconscious into the consciousness. Become aware of it. Ask yourself, what just activated me? Okay, it's number 1. Notice the trigger, become aware of the trigger. Number 2, regulate your state. Like I said, you cannot change your state of being from a feeling or from a state of survival, protection, and fear. So what your nervous system needs is regulation. Take a breather. Whenever you feel triggered, whenever you feel a little bit agitated, nervous, anxious, this is your nervous system, your vagus nerve clinching and saying, hey, this is dangerous, this is survival, let's activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Let's actually, boom, bombard you with anxiety so you kind of retract. You can get back to your safe place. What you do, close your eyes and take a deep breath. Inhale long and fully into your lungs, into your diaphragm, and really Fill your entire lungs, and then whenever you exhale, exhale with a slight sigh. So this is somatic body work. We're attaching a certain sound that will release energy out. Breathe around 10 to 15 times slowly and deeply. Your nervous system will regulate and calm down. Create some space between you and that triggered situation, between you and the trigger. Look at the trigger, not from an associated lens, so that meaning through your inner eye at this, the trigger is you, but rather what you can try is to dissociate yourself from the state. Meaning that if you get triggered, take 1 second or 10 seconds and lift yourself out of your body, physically in your head, or mentally in your head. You basically lift yourself out of your mind, and you look at yourself experiencing that trigger. This dissociation will help you to stay calm. This dissociation will help you to detach yourself from the problem and not see it as you, but rather as something you experience. And so regulate. Number 3 would then be choose one small new behavior. One small new behavior. This could be something that is not dramatic or personality change, rather something, just a slight different response. Maybe wait before reacting, or expressing a boundary calmly to your partner. That will help. Or simply asking a clear question instead of assuming. So exchange that old behavior that you would react with now, because you know what it is, exchange it with a new one, with a positive behavior. Instead of assuming, ask a clear question to better understand. Was this really what you meant? Or did you mean something else? What did you mean? Waiting before reacting. Let the moment of the emotions calm down and then ask rationally again, or engage rationally instead of emotionally, right? Exchange the old behavior with a new behavior. And then number 4, let your system experience that new proof. Let your system really experience what it now meant to react with a new behavior, a better positive behavior. How did this influence the situation? Did it improve the situation? Wow, if it improved the situation, that's proof, physical proof, that new behavior can create a safe environment, can create a safe system. It doesn't harm the system. So experience it fully. And then number 5, repeat. Try to catch yourself every time you have a moment like this, and try to then remember, okay, what was that new behavior that I implemented? Try to repeat it over and over and over again. This might work right away 100%, but the most important thing is this is a long run, not a sprint. So focus on what you can do as much as you are humanly capable of doing, instead of just doing everything perfect this one time and expecting that your entire life will change overnight. Rather, small incremental steps will lead to bigger identity shifts and identity change. So let's finish this video off strong. You've now received the 5-step formula of how to change or how to interrupt that safety loop. Most people think they need more discipline to change their lives, but what they actually need is a nervous system that feels safe becoming someone new. So instead of asking yourself, why do I keep sabotaging myself? A better question might be, what version of me does my system still believe it needs to protect me from? Because once that system feels safe enough to update, the patterns that felt impossible to change suddenly start to loosen, and a different version of you becomes available in real time. This is the end of video 3, the safety loop. how you can understand your loop. I hope you've learned so many new things in this video. Again, if you want to see more of this, check out the rest of it, the other videos on my YouTube channel that will probably popping up right here. Make sure to check the descriptions for my podcast and my social media. I post daily updates there and weekly long-form content on all available podcast platforms. I love you all. It was a pleasure being here again today. And I would say, see you in the next one.